It was a typical evening for me. Lisa, my wife, had gone out with her friends for the evening, which wasn't out of the ordinary because she had been hanging out with them more recently, and I didn't give it much thought. After 5 years of marriage, I had entire faith in her. I was in my home office completing some work when my phone buzzed, and her name appeared on my screen as Lisa. At first, I thought it might be a pocket dial, so I was ready to cancel the call. But then I heard her voice clearly on the other end. At first, I assumed she was speaking to me, so I said, "Hello, Lisa." When she didn't answer, I realized she was speaking to someone else. Her remarks stopped me cold. She was laughing while chatting with her pals, and what she said felt like a dagger to my chest. "I can't stand him," she added, her voice brimming with contempt. "I find everything about him annoying, including the way he speaks." I was unable to move or breathe and sat there, trying to convince myself that I had misheard. But she repeated, it louder this time, "I despise him." My wife's comment struck me like a freight train. When a woman I thought loved me declared that she loathed me, I instantly lost all faith in our relationship. Broken, I was unable to comprehend what I was hearing. It was as if my heart had been torn from my chest. I wanted to end the call, but I was unable to do so. The ground beneath me had vanished. I felt frozen as I listened to the person I cared about most talk about me as if I were nothing. Her friends laughed with her. "Why don't you just leave him?" one of them said. "What's the point of staying with someone you can't stand?" Lisa, my Lisa, laughed and said, "I don't love him, but this is easier because it's convenient." My thoughts were racing. How long had she felt this way? Was it something I did, or had she always been like this? I eventually hung up, my hands. Trembling so much I nearly dropped the phone. My mind was racing, my heart pounding. I sat silently, gazing at the phone in my palm while mentally repeating her words. I despise him. For the remainder of the evening, I was unable to eat, sleep, or think clearly. I kept asking myself the same questions. How long had she been feeling this way? Why hadn't I noticed the warning signs? The following morning, I woke up feeling more dreadful than ever. When she entered the kitchen, grinning as if nothing had changed, I couldn't look at her the same way. I was so disgusted by what had transpired. How could she seem so normal and act like nothing was wrong when she'd said such things about me only a few hours prior? Yet I remained silent because I wanted answers. I didn't know how to ask the questions, and I was afraid of what she might say. I decided to find out if she could say those things behind my back. Was she hiding something? I started small and waited for her to go before checking her phone. My hands were shaking as I opened it, half expecting to see nothing and half expecting to see something worse. A group chat with her friends. The same. Friends she had been with was present. As I read through the texts from the previous evening, my heart sank with each word. They were discussing how dull I was and how obnoxious. Lisa had written things I never would have imagined seeing. He isn't even aware of how foolish his attempts at romance look. At times, I wish he would simply vanish. The sentences became jumbled as I scrolled through them, each one hurting more than the last. Lisa was taking the lead in the discourse, which made me cry. Piece by piece, it was as if I were reading the thoughts of a stranger. Not only was I unhappy, but she hated me, made fun of me, and denigrated me. Worse still, she didn't care if others knew. She wasn't hiding it. I put the phone down and perched on the side of the bed. My chest felt constricted as I kept asking myself, how could she do this? Was this the woman I married? Or had I always been oblivious to her true nature? I wanted to yell at her and demand an explanation, but I couldn't yet. I needed to learn more about the extent of this betrayal. I decided to gather all the necessary proof. Over the next few days, I started working as a detective in my own house. I looked through her emails and examined her phone whenever I could. I hated myself for prying into her social media accounts and location history, but I had to understand the truth, no matter how unpleasant it was. The more I discovered, the worse it became. It wasn't only Chris. Other guys sent messages as well, some of them flirting, some casual, but all of them indicated that Lisa was leading a parallel life. She wasn't only upset with me, she was actively hunting for others. It seemed like I was removing layers of a falsehood I was unaware existed. Every message, every conversation, was another nail in our marriage's coffin. But despite the mounting evidence, I was unable to bring myself to face her just yet. I wanted to prepare and have a strategy. I began recording everything by taking screenshots of the emails and messages that I had saved. I wasn't sure what I would do with it all, but I even began recording our chats when I could. I knew I needed evidence of who she truly was and what she was doing behind my back. I wasn't going to let her distort the narrative or paint me as the antagonist. Not this time. But the more I discovered, the more irate I got. I was unable to eat, sleep, or focus on anything else because every time I saw her, I had an almost overwhelming wave of betrayal and loathing. She would sit there, grinning and giggling, pretending everything was okay, while the only thing on my mind was the messages to Chris, the betrayal, and the lies. One evening, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. She left with her pals once more, and I was sitting by myself in the living room gazing at the proof I had gathered. My heart was racing, and I knew that I was going to face her when she entered the room. I was sitting there when she eventually got home, not knowing what to say or how she would respond. I couldn't hold it in any longer. She entered the room, grinning, but as soon as she saw the expression on my face, her smile vanished. She inquired in a timid voice, "What's wrong?" I didn't initially say anything. I just picked up the phone and gave it to her, displaying the texts with Chris's face. On them, she turned pale. My voice trembling with rage, I said, "What is this? Who is Chris and why?" For a time, she simply stood there frozen, her eyes flitting between me and the phone. I asked, "Are you telling him all these things about me?" She began to stutter in an attempt to make an excuse, but I wasn't having it. "Don't lie," I told her. "I've seen everything, I know everything." Her justifications soon shifted. She became enraged and began yelling, accusing me of violating her privacy, of being controlling or overreacting. But I persisted and informed her that I had witnessed the messages, group conversations, and everything else. I asked, "How long has this been going on? How long have you been deceiving me?" Her response surprised me. She didn't apologize. Instead, she met my eyes directly and said, "What would you like me to say? You're not the man I believed you to be, and I haven't felt content in years." Her remarks hit me like a knife, but I forced myself to remain composed. Her words reverberated in my mind like a hammer striking my skull. She continued, "I haven't been happy in years," as if those words somehow justified all she had done, as if it was acceptable to make fun of and degrade me, to deceive me. I gazed at her, my hands shaking with anger. For a brief moment, I couldn't even talk, but when the dam broke, I yelled, "You haven't been happy? And how about me, Lisa? Do you think I've been content? Have I liked being made fun of behind my back? You've been deceiving me and making me feel ashamed, and you act like the victim in this situation." She refused to back down. Instead, she crossed her arms and gave me a stare as if I were the guilty party. She added, "At least I had the courage to say how I really feel. You're the one who's going to apologize for being honest." Her remarks felt like fuel on an open flame. I responded in a trembling voice, "Don't you dare try to turn this around on me. You are the one who has been lying and talking to other men behind my back." For a brief moment, she was surprised and unsure of how to react, but she quickly shrugged and said, "Daniel, did you ever consider the possibility that I have long harbored animosity for you? Did you ever consider the possibility that you are the issue?" Those remarks affected me more than anything else. I stood there looking at her, trying to comprehend what she had said. I asked, "Is this truly how you feel? Have you truly despised me all along? If so, why haven't you left?" She responded, "If you hate me so much, why do you pretend to be happy and string me along? Why put me through all of this? Why pretend to love me?" Her response made my blood run cold. "Because it was simpler," she said. "I didn't want to handle the difficulties of a divorce because, to be honest, I didn't believe you would not.